Let me start with a political analyst before we hear what politicians have got to say on this one. Dr. Friedman, your thoughts on the call that has been made by Mosiuoa Lekota here?
Look, Kulani, obviously, it's statingly obvious to say that if opposition parties get together and chat about cooperating on some issues, it might help them in Parliament. But I don't think that that's what's in people's minds at the moment. I think that what is in people's minds is this myth, and I think it really is a myth, that if you unite the opposition in this country, it'll actually be stronger than it is now. I don't think that's true. We have an electoral system at the national and the provincial level, which means that you can't really split the vote, which is usually the reason why parties get together. So you don't want a situation where in particular constituencies the opposition's getting more of the vote, but because it's split, the ruling party wins. We don't have that system. I don't think that if the opposition got together, the total opposition vote would grow. And the danger you risk if you start uniting opposition parties simply because you think that it'll make you stronger is that you're cutting down the choices which opposition voters have. At the moment, opposition voters have a wide variety of choices about parties they can support. If this all landed up with one large opposition party, those choices will be cut down, and I would predict that some opposition parties voters may well decide to stay away rather than support a united opposition. So, while cooperation between the opposition might help them, I think getting together won't help them. If you want to know who the immediate beneficiary of opposition unity would be, well, you just have to look at the election results so far. The more there's talk of opposition unity, the more opposition voters have been moving to the DA. So the DA would be the major beneficiary in the first term, but I think that would be in a sense, a short-sighted victory for the DA because they would gain a lot of opposition votes to start off with. But as I say, over time, I think that some opposition voters would say, but hang on, the party I used to vote for isn't there anymore, and I'm staying at home rather than voting.
All right, let's bring in the DA on that particular score because we've heard from the DA that they will be attending the talks. On what basis, Natasha Michaels, will you be going in then?
Well, the DA is definitely going in with what we call an open mind, but most certainly not an empty mind. We have ideas on the realignment of South African politics, and I think it's absolutely necessary that South African politics goes through a realignment. Steven is right in that it's no good to gang up as opposition parties and think that you'll achieve something, by ganging up against the ANC. That's certainly not the idea. We are separate political parties because obviously we have fundamental differences. And of course it's no good when you bring a group of people together who fundamentally differ. It will result in absolute chaos. So that is certainly not the idea. The idea is to come together as opposition parties, discuss the political landscape as it is at the moment, look at ways of going forward, and generally discuss the way we can improve the lives of all South Africans.
So in other words, you're not sure what the future may turn out to be. You just want to go there, talk, but you actually have no idea what's likely to come out of it.
Absolutely. These things, this is why we live in a democratic society. We go there, as I said, an open mind. We're willing to hear all ideas. We do work together with many opposition parties in governments across the country, in municipalities across the country. And I think it's just good for opposition parties to come together and discuss what's going on in the country. We have a very interesting political landscape at the moment. And, we need to sit down as politicians and really look at bettering our country.
But having said that, and I'm going to refer to the invitation itself, but I would like you to just clarify this whole concept of realignment of South African politics, because we hear it over and over again. But to me, as an ordinary voter, what does it mean?
Well, the realignment of politics, I think it's an interesting one because many people view it in different ways. I think fundamentally what it means is that you have a shift of, this complete separation of political parties and political ideas. I think what you're looking at when you realign politics is that you start working essentially for the betterment of South Africa. It's to take away individual gain of any one person and look at the gain of South Africa as a whole.
Are you suggesting that currently opposition parties are not working for the betterment of South Africa?
No, certainly not. I think if you didn't have opposition parties in South Africa, we'd be in a great deal of trouble. I think it's clear that opposition parties in South Africa are essential to make sure that we have a stable democracy that we have and to ensure that South Africans remain in a country where they have choice. We do an essential job in in the country. And, realignment also includes the fact that opposition parties need not be in opposition forever. And one just has to look at the fact that the DA, in many cases...
Which can be interpreted to mean ganging up against the ANC.
No, certainly not. I think, exactly what I mean is in the Western Cape, where you have the DA who is in control of the Western Cape, we went from an opposition party to a party of government. And I think you're going to see more and more across the country as people become disillusioned with the ANC. You're going to see the DA becoming the government in waiting.
Is that what you're going to propose then when you go there? Are you going to say to people, listen, look at what happened in the Western Cape. We came together with other opposition parties, and in the end, we are running the province.
Well, certainly I think that, that's one of the issues we will be discussing. We're not going to force it down anyone's throat. We believe in democracy, and that's what we stand for. So political parties are free always to make their own choices, to look at policies and discuss issues that are on the table.
All right, Dr. Ambrosini, for the IFP, going into these talks then, for the IFP, what is the basis? What is it that you'd like to see coming out of these talks?
We built a democracy. Democracy is about creating at least a possibility for the minority of today to become the majority of tomorrow. We need to create those conditions for democratic change. Otherwise, having one party in power all the time is going to be the end of the First Republic. What we know, and I think people on the ground do know, that the ANC has lost the moral compass. We see that on an issue like the information bill, the secrecy bill, in which there is a complete divorce between what people want and what Parliament is about to give them. If you look at leaders of the stature of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, Mosiuoa Lekota, these are people who still hold the moral compass. And we need a new wave of leadership which places back the country in what should be doing. Not the agenda of corruption, not the agenda of self-enrichment, but the agenda of development and hard work and rebuilding the economy, rebuilding the country.
Dr. Ambrosini, sorry to interrupt, because I think the question then is that as individual political parties, you clearly are not able to convince the voters that you hold that moral compass at this stage. How do you think that collectively then you will be able to make a difference?
Well, we need to clarify what collectively means. I don't think anyone is talking about creating a new party or a unity party. What we are creating are the conditions on the basis of which, should the electorate so be inclined, these opposition parties can express a new president or can become crucial to the election of a president. Make no mistake, the president is not elected at the elections.
Yes.
He's elected by Parliament.
I know, yeah.
If the ANC is cut down to 49%, the day after the elections, on this first day of being convened, Parliament will need to elect a president with the support of the opposition. So that's, I think, it's a target which should be real.
But Dr. Friedman says cooperation won't necessarily make you any stronger than what you already are.
Well, it's not cooperation, it's a plan. I think that opposition parties are now in the position of giving the electorate a plan for the future, and the plan for the future is to cut down the ANC to 49% or below the 50% threshold, and on that basis negotiating a new course of development for the country in which the agenda is no longer going to be that of corruption, but is going to be really that of economic development. It's a matter of regaining the moral ground and the vision which was developed through the liberation and in 1994.
But Dr. Ambrosini, let me ask you whether or not opposition, some may say opposition needs a plan to grow votes, not a plan to work in Parliament. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you have a plan to oppose the nomination of the president because you have fewer members of Parliament than the ruling party would have. What you need is a plan that's going to go out there and convince the electorate that voting for you as opposition parties is worth it.
Plans exist. There are plenty of plans. There are plenty of policies. The issue of South Africa is not ideological. It's not about people developing new policies or new plans. It's about the quality and the stature of the leaders. It is about morality towards corruption. And it's whether you trust people of the stature of Buthelezi, Ellen Zille, Lekota to run the country, or you trust a different bunch of people. I think that this is quite clear in the minds of the electorate. It's a matter of walking the walk, and these are leaders who have the capacity and the track record of walking the talk. While we have seen thus far in the past 3 years of Zuma administration just talk with little walk according to the talk.
Let me hear from the ANC Chief Whip then, Dr. Motsekga. Are you worried as the ANC?
The ANC is laughing at this initiative because Lekota could not create a united and cohesive cope. I can predict that in the next 18 months, there will be hardly any cope. It will fall apart. Now, a person who cannot lead a united and cohesive organization, how can he lead a desperate conglomeration of opposition parties led by some unprincipled people like Ambrosini, who doesn't know whether it's coming and going? And this so-called realignment of politics is really a ganging up of people who have betrayed the voters, who told the voters that they have a plan which they will take to Parliament and fight for its implementation. They are in Parliament. They have been exposed as having no plan. They have no agenda, and that's why they have time to run around, try to organize some unity talks. So all that they are trying to do now is to form a club, a talk shop, because the Parliament, which is the national forum for the consideration of national issues, is available, but they have nothing to offer in Parliament.